Hey everybody, how goes it today? Making a video outside because it's beautiful, and usually people come and go in and out in the backyard for smoking cigarettes or otherwise, so there's always traffic, but everybody's gone right now. To an extent, at least I have a little bit of time, so I thought I'd make one. I love making videos outside. You know, it's more inspiring, especially making them out in the front where like in the evenings, you know, when it's nice and quiet. But I haven't been making many lately outside due to that factor, I guess, of being interrupted. Years ago, when I would make a YouTube video and get interrupted, it used to frustrate me, and I'd just turn off the video. And then I grew used to it, and now I can deal with sirens and dogs barking and all that, but, you know, whatever. It's just depends on my mood and how I'm feeling that day. It's funny because that's what this video is really about. I wanted to make a video addressing a little bit about myself, but not for the sake of saying, you know, talking about myself, but saying that I know that there are other people out there who feel similarly and have similar, you know, drawbacks when it comes to pursuing what you might call your dreams or your ideal path. And often it just becomes so confusing and obscure what we really want that we don't yearn for anything. In other words, I envy those who can set a goal and just go for it. And that takes tunnel vision and a one-track mind sometimes, but sometimes that's what you need, and not everyone has that. And noticing and realizing the differences between people, how you know, many artists can't function in certain aspects of, for example, a mathematician. Somebody, you know, often mathematicians have problems in social situations. This isn't something that's universal, of course, but those who are very, very scientifically, like very advanced into their realms, tend to speak more in that language and have a harder time dealing with people. This isn't always true. I should have, you know, have a link to that example. I was reading an article about it a while back, but the idea that it takes all types and all kinds. There are shortcomings to all of our, you know, paths and the way that we go about life. And who the hell should know any better? I mean, you know, there's no book on life, no real book on how to live, I should say. It's as absurd as a book on parenting. Like this morning I was thinking about this, and, you know, I took a shower and I was thinking, get out and go about my morning routine, and the kids get up and we get them ready for school. Well, you know, one of my sons is in school, the other one's not in school yet, but thinking about the decisions you make as a parent. Should I homeschool, or should I send them to a public school? Should I, you know, teach my kids and discipline them with shame, or should I use, you know, or guilt, or should I use some sort of a physical punishment? And being a parent is a pain in the ass. And I'll tell you, the ones who say this is how a person should parent are often the people who are either extremely controlling people or those who don't have kids at all. And that's okay. Sometimes from the standpoint of not having kids, maybe that does give you a different view. But anyhow, to get back on track here, I took a list and a note of my interests. And I thought, you know, I've done this before, but I've never really, you know, talked about it, because I'm going to follow up with my disinterests. And I think that there's somebody out there who could probably relate to this. So I love art, but, you know, I have a family and I have to make money. I can't just do art all the time. And people would say, well, why not? You know, many people pursue their dreams. I mean, and they don't make anything. It's not about the money to me at all. Maybe it's more about just being dedicated to one thing, because my interests are so wide. I like painting. I did Fimo clay art for, you know, a long time, and I really enjoyed that. I like working with clays and doing different designs. I like beading, making necklaces. And I enjoy the patterning, designing of necklaces themselves. Now, these are just some of my early art, you know, interests. And I haven't done many of these in years, but then there's jewelry. And most recently I got into lapidary work. I bought a grinder and a buffer polishing system for cutting and polishing stones, and I was showing that before. I'm starting to work with silver and silver wire. I've worked with glass in the past with my friends briefly, but I just didn't have the setup to do that. But I'm fascinated with working with all natural materials and just creating stuff. If I could wake up every day and just create, I'd love to do that. and I probably could, but I have to work myself towards that because I have my own mental blocks which prevent me from doing things, and we all do. I also am a woodworker. I was a carpenter for years, and I enjoyed doing everything from building large houses down to small wooden boxes. I did kitchen cabinets and custom cabinet work for certain clients, and so I learned a lot in that time with somebody who was willing to let me kind of learn on my own. I built furniture and chairs and stuff like that, and really had a pride in it, a passion for what I did until my back went out. But beyond that, I love photography. I love taking pictures of everything from the macro to the micro, and especially micro photography. And this is the kind of thing that I love to do, and I love taking pictures, but I don't go full force. Some people, that's their whole thing is photography. All these break up my passions into too many different categories, if you will. I love teaching. I love educating, but I also love being educated and learning about history. And without taking a teaching position, it's very difficult to, get paid to teach. You can, of course, do, people make YouTube videos, educational, and collect donations and whatnot. But generally, if you have a passion for teaching people, you tend to know what you're teaching. And for me, it's hard because I'm not as confident in the deeper truths in life as other people claim to be. And this is because I see two sides butting heads, multiple sides butting heads, all claiming to have the one truth. And they can't all be true. They have to be exclusive. Something has to be wrong, If, for example, a metaphor for that, if two religions are butting heads and both of them claim the other one's wrong, well, one person at least has to be wrong, if not both. So we can go along and pretend like, well, everybody has their own opinion, but if the truth is you'll never come to a consensus, then you have to acknowledge that. Anyhow, I love teaching, but it's a matter of finding what to teach and what's worth teaching. Going on to tangents about modern politics or something about historical lore. I'm more into the stories like Joseph Campbell type stuff, the hero's journey. And because I see things more in metaphors now, we get too caught up in the little trivial details on stuff and not seeing the bigger picture. And that's not our fault. That's just how we are. We're human. And I also play guitar. I was in a band for a few years with my brother. I love playing bass, but I put both of those down for a few years now. I wrote a couple songs last year, and on top of that, I have a touchpad I bought for my kid, like a DJ pad, and I love making electronic songs and electronic music. I've even written a couple raps and recorded them, just for fun and some joke stuff like that. It doesn't even matter what it is. It's just a matter of doing it. I have a passion for doing these things. Gardening. I love gardening. I love growing cannabis. I grew it for a long time. I love making extracts. I love researching terpenes, baking goods, wildcrafting, herb hunting, and going out looking for things, mushroom hunting out in the woods. I love mycology and the study of mushrooms. Writing and blogging and vlogging are the last one I've got on my list here. And that's pretty damn obvious. 4,000 something videos probably, and I just looked and I'm almost 13,000 subscribers, and I think that's just crazy to me. But then I look back and realize how long I've been making videos and how many I've made and how widely varied they are. Different people commenting on different videos. It's really interesting to talk to different people about how they feel about certain things. And not everybody agrees on all aspects. That's just life. And I'm glad for that. That's diversity. That's adversity. That's what creates the adversity that we overcome in order to look back and see if this experience had never happened, we never would have learned our lesson. And I think that's really important for us to realize. I always use the example of the bomb. If we hadn't dropped the bomb, Nagasaki and Hiroshima were horrific sites. But we can look back and say, that's something we do not want to repeat. Not that it won't happen again, but the idea that we would be wondering. Let's say that we had invented nukes and never set one off. Somebody would be itching to try it. Humans are curious, and that goes for the positive and the negative, and that gets me into the idea that, positive and negative are truly, sides of the same coin. It's just like good and evil. Much of it is subjective. Most of us will agree that, hurting someone is not a good thing, but can we apply that to every case? Well, if it's self-defense, is that okay? All right, and then we start making little exceptions to the rule. My non-interests are paperwork, organization, setting plans, obligations, advertising or dealing with the advertising side of the world, the whole ad men type mentality that of trying to fool someone into buying something just because you think they want it, fooling someone into buying something because you know they don't want it, and convincing them that it's something they need. I mean, look at the absurdity of even chewing gum ads, commercials. I can't remember. Somebody mentioned one the other day. I don't watch TV. I don't have network or cable, so I can't stand commercials, and the reason why I don't put ads on my channel. But okay, so on to it. The rest of my non-interests, they're small, but obligations, advertisements, or dealing with that, justifying things, or people trying to justify things, or me having to justify things. I just say, whatever, if you don't agree, you don't agree. I will explain, but not try to justify, because that's justifying means that you really know that it's wrong, and you are trying to prove that it's right by fooling yourself, and that creates a cognitive dissonance, holding two opposing views at the same time. Some of my other non-interests are fame, success in the social aspect, or what they consider success, and the last one, allowing others to explain what good and evil or progress or God are. So that kind of sums it up, where I'm coming from in regards to by writing these things down. It was for myself, and I thought, if I share this with people, maybe somebody out there who has a whole shitload of interests like I do, the jack of all trades, master of none, which I can hold claim to that, and I'm cool with it. I've discussed this with a lot of people, and some people say, well, it's preferable to master one trade, and my thought is, you never master a trade. You're always yearning for more, but there's always a way to look back and say, sure, I could have always got better, but I could have been moderately good at many different things and perhaps found a path that fit me better. But you'll notice that my list of dislikes is really short, and it doesn't have anything to do with what other people generally do, unless they're pushing it in my face, like the advertising, or trying to tell me what God is, and it's because I've been down so many roads like that, and trying to explain and argue in a way that's constructive is difficult, because I know people need their beliefs in their government, they need their beliefs in their religions, they need their beliefs in themselves and others. They need to justify certain family issues or situations in order to cope with certain things. Just like being a parent. I guess that's a perfect example. Any parent who says that, being a parent is the greatest thing ever, and they haven't wondered what it would have been like to not be a parent, they're lying. To me, being a parent is the most rewarding thing. And like most parents, I wouldn't give it up for anything. I would never go back in time and say, oh, I'd love to be even single or childless so I could go wander off and do my selfish things in life. No, because I believe that we get more out of helping others, and we get more out of setting goals than we do out of just moving along and just doing what we do. But those goals, no matter how great they are, if we haven't put in true work to the natural order of things, and to me that means taking care of kids, and you don't have to have your own kids, because I think that that's the mentality that's got us into the trouble with overpopulation that we have, is believing that, well, it's just what we do, we have kids. No. Some people are much better off not having kids because of the types of jobs and careers they have, and some of those are people that we really need in our society. So it's good that we don't all have kids. But the point isn't about kids themselves, but rather looking at things realistically and rationally and saying, this is where we are, and this is why I'm in the situation I'm in. I have all these interests I could have pursued, but they get broken up by life itself. Having kids, puts you in a very ecstatic state. Well, it should. When they're young and they're babies and it's all the new excitement, then you get the postpartum depression that women get, but it's men too. It's not just women, and nor is oxytocin just produced by women, it's by men too. Fathers have the same problem with this postpartum depression, where a child's born and then they start getting older, and all of a sudden they go from being a cute baby to telling you no and screaming and slamming doors and throwing things at you, or you trying to have to explain to them how the world works, even though you don't know yourself. And most of us believe that we know what to teach, and in fact in religious households, kids are taught, this is what we believe, so this is what you believe. But When it comes to the big questions like, why are we here? When your 8-year-old asks you that, and you don't want to lie to him by giving him your subjective opinion, it's much easier for me to say, that's for you to discover. I'd love for you to tell me. Well, but my answer to that is always, it is what you make it. Most of the dislikes that I have are due to the social norms that we expect. And when I say organization and paperwork, I seriously hate doing paperwork. I cannot stand getting together receipts, and that's why running a business is difficult for me. As one guy, running the business isn't that hard of a thing, but when you have a lot of different customers with different needs, and then you're also answering emails on the side and messages, it's very consuming. I didn't even realize I work at least 40 hours a week at home just doing basic office work, and but I enjoy it because I'm actually doing something where I'm helping people, where they feel like they're being helped in many ways, and I think that's really what we're all yearning for, is to try to find something where we can, make a living, but have it not be about money, just to be able to get by. The communal type lifestyle is more suits me, I guess. But I'm also a city boy, so I know that. I grew up in the Portland area, and so I'm not an inner city boy. I'm more of a suburb boy, I guess. And but that doesn't define me any more than being a carpenter for a decade defined me before my sciatica kicked my ass so bad that I couldn't even work anymore. And I'd get to work and have to wrestle myself and stand up and try to get out of the car, and it was complete chaos every day. It was a nightmare to stand up straight. And then I'd carry all my saws and tools into work up till about 5 years ago, and then one day it was so bad I just picked up my tools and left. And so I got thousands of dollars worth of my carpentry tools and finish work stuff and cabinetry stuff, and I just left the business completely. And for like a year, it was like I wasn't aimless because I had my kids, and I was a stay-at-home dad with them in the meantime, doing what I could on side jobs and whatnot. But then once I got my herb business going and it was somewhat established, at least I could get to a point where it can just be something that I do on the side. For me, my interests aren't in being a millionaire. Sometimes I envy people who do pursue money, and knowing that it's not the end, but that they can use that in order to better themselves and those around them. But I'm very wary of that. I know that having more money means you have more to protect. The more property you have, the more chance someone can take some. The more, stuff you have, the more likely that somebody's going to either take advantage, or you could lose it, or it could be destroyed. And it was something I learned years ago, and it was during my Manly P. Hall days when I was listening to a lot of Manly and a different philosophy in Eastern mysticism. And I learned some valuable lessons about that, well, I kind of lost my train of thought on that one, but let me ponder and take a vape. It was said that life is about work, that we want to work. And it takes time to think about that. It's not. Say, what do you mean by work? What is work? And it's not that we want to go out and punch a clock every day and work on an assembly line, or even work for someone else, but the idea that we need to put some effort into our lives in order to get rewards. And often finding that path is difficult. You can be very aware of the world around you and still not have a clue of how to function within a group. And so finding those shortcomings and those issues that we have on the side, that we can actually say, well, I'm not very good in social situations. It took me years to figure this out. That when I'm in certain states of mind or feeling a certain way, it's like where I avoid talking to the cashier, go to the self-checkout and whatnot. Other days I'm just chatty as chatty could be, and it has a lot to do with diet. It also has a lot to do with whether or not I've taken any substances. For example, I know that benzodiazepines like Valium, diazepam, makes me much more social, and it brings down the guard and allows me to talk more to people. It wasn't until I tried it that I realized that. But the downside is that in order to consistently feel that way, you have to consistently take a pill every day. And I'm not a pill-taking kind of guy. I mean, Kratom is my medicine, if anything, and you know, I stick with it. A little bit of cannabis, of course, a lot less than I used to, but it's different. It's about trying to approach. If I have something that I really need to get done, and sometimes if I take, you know, a Valium or get a hold of one, the next day I feel super motivated and in a very good mood, and all day long. And so it's difficult. You wonder, well, what is there something wrong with our brain chemistry as humans? You know, what's holding us back from feeling good all the time? It's one of those philosophies I've considered so many times. You know, can we feel good all the time? And if so, how does that play out in the balance of, you know, yeah, balance of life. I'm going to go now. It's probably getting a long video, but just some thoughts on that, some thoughts on life and pursuit, and to each his own. Let nobody drive your train. You figure out your own, lay your own tracks as you go, but sometimes, it's like they say, you know, you should blaze your own trail, of course, but sometimes you can walk an existing trail for a while, and it can help you to get to where, you know, to being too stubborn and not, you know, using some of the things that we already know to, you know, improve. Like our ancestors have worked so hard to get us to where we are now, and now we're often resisting it, saying, oh, look at all this crap we created, look at all these buildings in these cities, look what we've done to the planet. But that's what we wanted. Maybe not so much anymore, because we're realizing we couldn't buy our way to happiness. But that's my video for the day, and I'll be talking to y'all soon. Have a wonderful afternoon, or whatever time of day.